Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are at. This is Plot Twist Please, and if you were looking for Plot Twist Please, you were in the right place. If you weren't, you're still in the right place, so stick around, why don't ya? Today, we are going to talk about our misconceptions about self-care. By our, I mean the collective we. That includes you, that includes the culture, and the people outside of the culture, you know what I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, today, I have a special guest, Sara Katherine of the Sara Katherine blog. She is a podcaster, a blogger, a coach, and author of I'm Austin Here's Why, as well as several others. And I'm really excited to have her on. We've had a few conversations in the past just about self-care and the wellness industry and just some blind spots that we both have witnessed and the process of aligning our mission statements to what we hope the wellness industry becomes in reference to the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of other things that have come to light, for us as of late. I'm really excited about that conversation and to just dive into it. I'm feeling like we should just go ahead with the go ahead, you know? So here is Sara Katherine. Hi, Sara.
Hi. Nice to see you today.
Yeah. Thank you so much again for joining me on this episode.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I reached out to you because this is for our listeners, because you already know this, but I think you have a really interesting point of view, and the fact that you're so young and are a creative entrepreneur and just so driven, and you seem to have a really grounded perspective. And I really just wanted to get your take on things.
Sure.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question I have for you, it's kind of just like an icebreaker, just like a fun thing. So what kinds of movies and books and stuff are you indulging in right now?
Ooh, well, currently I'm revisiting a guilty pleasure of mine, America's Next Top Model.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
What lovely problematic fave.
Yeah. Problematic fave.
Yes. As soon as quarantine hit, my friend was like, "Oh, all of Top Models on Hulu," and I'm like, "Okay, we're doing this." And now I'm 15 seasons in, and I can't really look back. But
there's no going back.
No, not at this point. My friend and I have been rewatching it together, virtually, and yeah, so that is one thing I've been watching a lot. Reading, I've been reading this series. It's the last of this series called The Diviners. It's based in the 1920s. It's kind of a young adult kind of horror fantasy type mystery-ish novel. Yeah, it's written by I believe the author is Libba Bray. She's a fantastic young adult author. It follows the 5 people that are each have their own this unique superpower, diviners, and they have to help this world of undead that's coming to try and take over New York in the 1920s. So
that's
very,
so fascinating.
Very interesting. Yeah, and it's 4 or 5 books and they're this big, but yeah, it goes through the whole thing. So that's another thing I'm reading.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's so many layers. It's the zombies and then the 1920s, but it sounds really interesting read.
Yeah, when I was younger in high school, she wrote a novel, a series that was also kind of a period piece. It was more I don't know, I don't want to say medieval times, but kind of having, I guess, medieval times to Renaissance-ish, those types of corsets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more they found a dimension. It was 3 young girls that found a dimension into another time and realized they had magic powers in that way or something. But it was based back then, and then one girl discovered she was gay, and it was just such a great story.
Yeah, I feel I'm getting more into sci-fi now than I ever have been. I was never into sci-fi fantasy when I was younger. I was really into realistic fiction. But I don't know. I don't know if I've just gotten more in touch with my weird or I don't know what it is.
What type of sci-fi? I don't know if it's movies or shows or books. What type of ones are you into right now?
I really dig Umbrella Academy right now. I dig it.
I haven't watched it yet, but I want to. It's on that list.
Yes, it's great. It's real kooky, but I like it because it's kooky. It's yeah, it's superheroes, but with a different kind of spin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Something about otherworldly entities. I don't know. It's just really fascinating for me.
And have you ever Have you ever watched Doctor Who? Because that is like the
You know
super,
what?
yep.
Yeah. It
Okay,
was in high
awesome.
school. It was the thing. It was the thing. It really was.
Oh man, so do you
I'm
have
not
a,
that deep into it where I know like the different doctors, like who all of them were. I'm
okay.
not that deep into it. But like I could recognize some of them.
Well, if you're getting into that type of stuff, it might be worth revisiting because
Huh.
I didn't, when I watched the first episode, like the 2005 one, I was like, this is weird. And
It's so
I've
weird.
always
Yeah.
liked that, but it's so bad, but like you gotta just push through those beginning awkward, like 2000s bad
Mm,
graphics and like
yeah.
campy type things. But as soon as you get like into like the 10th and 11th Doctor, it's just wonderful. The story's great. The characters are great. And I haven't really watched most of the recent stuff with the woman,
Hmm.
but I definitely recommend like if you were interested in diving into it again, if you're into the
Yeah.
sci-fi stuff right now, it
I
might
really
be
am.
yeah.
I
Yeah, highly
also,
recommend.
yeah. I think the thing is too for me about sci-fi and fantasy, it's like the kinds of minds that create that stuff. Like,
Mm,
whoa! Like it
yeah.
just like who comes up with like a wizardry school with 4 different houses and all these characters and all these backstories. I don't know. It's so
That's the
crazy to me.
thing.
Like,
The backstories and the continuity of everything, like
yeah.
that is what, like, because you have to create everything from scratch, like, and you have to stay consistent yourself, and you have to say, like, because I've tried like writing my own fantasy stuff like in the past,
Oh.
and it's just for fun, and it's hard to keep track of like every little, like, you got to name everything, you got to think of the
Mm-hmm.
creatures, you got to think of the people, what does this mean, like what's the political situation, like how is there a monarch, is it like, it's there's so much, and to keep that consistent and completely think of it on your own is so impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really insane. Um, but yeah, that's good to hear that you've been like enjoying part of whatever state we're in in the world. So more into like what you do. How did you even get started? Like what inspired you to go on the path that you're on, you know?
Well, as a just kind of like a overview of where I'm at right now, and then I'll take a step back on how I got here. Currently, I work a day job as a marketing manager for a website agency, and I really love that job. But at the same time, I have my online kind of like coaching online course business, where I really like helping especially women who are just feeling overwhelmed, constantly wanting to people please with other people. They're feeling very lost in what they actually want because they're constantly putting other people's needs before your own. And I acknowledge that putting others' needs before your own is always a wonderful thing to do, but there comes to a point where you're not paying attention to yourself. So you're not taking care of yourself in ways that you need to. So helping women be able to set those boundaries as well as discover the values that are important to them in order to really figure out what they want to do in their life rather than what other people in their life or what society has. And the reason why that's the case is because I've been there. I've been that person, like even all the way back to high school. I was like, this shy kid that just wanted to make sure that everyone liked me. And it was a very, very, very small school, like 90 kids in my graduating class, because we're just a very small rural community. Um, and it was like everyone knew everything about you. And if you stepped out of that box of what someone thought of you, you were deemed as weird, or it was not encouraged to like do something different and it's not like I wanted to ever do anything super drastically different, but I still felt this pressure to be the person that they expected of me. And I distinctly, and this came from the staff too, because there was this career counselor that was helping everyone with college applications in my senior year. And I had told her I wanted to go to a community college rather than a 4-year because I realized 4 years were too expensive. What a concept.
Mm-hmm.
um, and she told me that I was going to be miserable. I was going to hate my life, and I needed to go to a UC, so University of California here. She was projecting all of her BS, to say the least, onto
Mm-hmm.
me. But as a 18-year-old, I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? And so she was trying to push me into this little bubble of that she thought of me that I needed to do. And so, and then I went through all the motions of going to college, and took a semester off to work in Disney World, which was great for the Disney College program over there. And that was really where I started to kind of explore life outside of the small town that I grew up in. And so coming back and then moving to Southern California, because I'm from Northern California, to finish school, and then finishing and graduating, I just discovered like, oh my God, I've just been so go with trying to graduate, to finish school, like working on the weekends, everything like that, that I ended up in an internship with terrible management, toxic atmosphere. And then and then I was hitting a wall at the job that I had at the time, other than the internship. So I got my first full-time marketing job, and I just was so depressed and anxious. I would wake up with panic attacks literally every day because I was just terrified of what the day was going to bring in regards to how I was feeling or what I was going to counter at work, anything like that. So going through all of this, I had to kind of unlearn a lot of my own habits of being like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but why am I just feeling like this? And so that really pulled me towards personal development. And I started going to therapy as well. Can't discount that. So into self-care and personal development. And I just started reading books and discovered this whole creative entrepreneurship community in the personal development world, and just started learning so much in that way that I was starting to discover more of what I wanted, and somehow some of my habits had led me to that point. And part of that was people pleasing and not really focusing on things that I want. And I ended up quitting that job that I had to try and freelance. And I was starting my blog at the time. And I had been blogging for a long time, but I'm on a ton of other things. I blogged about my Disney College program experience. I did like basic lifestyle things, dabbled into it. But then I started more with self-care. And that's been a foundation of pretty much everything that I still teach today, to be able to document my own journey with kind of unlearning some of my own habits, but also teaching other people about what's helped me, and hopefully it would help them. And it just kind of evolved from there. And it's transitioned from a life after college type situation to finding your purpose, to now just encompassing all of those things to help people stop people pleasing and discover what they want and how to get it. So that's the whole story.
That's amazing. I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that place that you were talking about of, like, I really hate the way that my life is going, even though I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. And, I feel like that's also a young adult transition, like early 20s. Yeah. I feel like, a lot of my mentors or professors were like, hey, like when you graduate college, life is going to punch you in the face and you're going to wonder what you're doing.
I wish more people told me that. I just had people saying, oh, you're in marketing, you're going to be in sales. And I'm like, okay, that's it. That's all the warning I had.
But yeah, it sounds like, I feel like it's a very synonymous experience with like people in the 20 to 25 age bracket. But it's really hard to come out of it feeling like you have some sort of ownership over your life that isn't precedented by other people's expectations of you. And you spoke about that a lot. And I just find it really admirable that you were able to circumvent that, because like, I'm also someone who like in high school and grade school was the like out of box kind of person who like people kind of expected certain behaviors or just, just certain like antics from me. And, it's similar to what you said, how like you really have to just get out of that. And that's so fascinating to me.
Yeah. And you have to discover like what is actually something that you expect from yourself or what someone else expects from you. And being able to identify that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Takes hard work. And I can't say that I'm completely no longer like putting my like caring about other people's opinions and whatnot. It's like constantly ongoing, but definitely being able to have that foundation to feel more independent of that is what I feel like I've been able to accomplish so far and what I want to help other people do too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like I wish that I was at the mind state of like an 80-year-old who's like, right. I don't care, like I'm out of here soon.
Yeah, my grandma was like 98 when she passed, and by the end of it, she's like,
bye.
Yeah. She's like, I've lived a good life. it's time to move forward.
That's what we should all aspire to. The honesty and confidence of a 95-year-old.
I love that. Yes.
So like what were the doubts that you had going into the field and building your platform? Because I feel like, again, like being young, we're very impressionable and we care a lot about what people think about us, particularly our peers, you know? So how did you?
That's a really good question. Still something that I deal with, of course, and I feel like every entrepreneur deals with at every stage that they hit. But I guess really just in the beginning, let me think about that for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I guess the first thing that I can think of is that some of I put together, I'm going to be very, very transparent about my first program that I launched, which was like a year or two ago. I can't even remember at this point. But the first program that I launched, it was the first time I had really put an online course together and did all the videos and everything. And because at that point I had just, I published a book and had done a ton of other types of projects with it, but never something that was like a bigger ticket, like, let me help you through a huge part of your life kind of a situation. And so while I do have marketing experience, obviously from school and from my day job, the creative entrepreneurship community is so different. And the approach that you have to take to these types of either launches and putting everything together, and you don't realize just how much work goes into something like that. Mm-hmm. And I definitely, I think, underestimated how much work it was going to take based off of the timeline that I did. And because everything was very forced, I only had one student come in. And that student wasn't even really a student. She was kind of another coach that was curious about what I was doing, she wasn't, there was no ill will towards her. She was getting help, like she was still using my material to help her own life. But at the same time, she was like, I was curious on what you were doing. She still paid me and we still had coaching courses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But having that, I don't want to call it a failed launch, but going through that and it not hitting my goals and not hitting my own expectations has definitely set some doubts in my head about things after that. So having to kind of sift through, I started just really looking at like all the different coaches, all the different like resources out there. And I started getting pretty like overwhelmed by all the, I guess you could say, all the creative biz noise out there of like what you should be doing, what you need to do. And it's all kind of the same thing over and over again at the end of the day, to be honest. But really trying to understand like if something that I'm doing is more, it feels right to me, and I know it'll help my audience, and I know it'll help my future students and my current ones. And just to be able to kind of sift through those doubts of, oh my God, I'm going to have another launch and it's going to fail. No one's going to care. I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be crickets. So those types of doubts are constantly in my head, and not constantly, but they have been in my head over time. And as well as, I guess you could say, just like, is my advice legitimate? Kind of that imposter syndrome situation. Mm-hmm. It's like, am I qualified to teach these kinds of things? And then I have to remind myself, just the whole story I told you is enough to be able to be like, I understand. Maybe I'm not the end all be all answer. I'm not perfect. I haven't had it all figured out, but if I could help someone with at least one thing, then I think that's what I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cause I also feel like, even as, as young people, but just as people in general, I feel like we shortchange ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we almost don't recognize the value and life experience and our own experiences.
Yeah.
Like, cause people are complex and people have been through stuff. People have been through stuff.
Yeah. Even if you're young, even if you're in high school or something like that, you don't know someone's, like, you never know what they've gone through. And sometimes you don't even realize what you've gone through. Mm-hmm. Like, because I didn't even realize some of the stuff that I had experienced, not necessarily negative, but just a lot of things to, I guess, unlearn, that led to me feeling more anxious and whatnot. So when I was talking to a therapist, she was like, oh, you've just been go, go, go your whole life. Your brain doesn't know how to slow down. No wonder you're anxious. Like those kinds of things, you don't realize that might be happening, but doesn't matter your age, just like what you said. I completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of like unlearning behavior, what kind of things did you have to unlearn?
I think some things, the first one I guess I could say is what I just said, learning to slow down and kind of stay more present, because my brain would just always go into just like every possibility and just like, I need to do this, I need to do that. And so if I had something in my head that I couldn't figure out right away, I would just spiral and just be like, oh my God, like my life is over. But it would just spiral into something more than it needed to, when all I needed to do was kind of breathe. So learning to slow down, meditating, journaling, and everything like that, and really know that I don't have to be doing 10 million things at once, is something that I've had to unlearn. A big thing that I'm still working on, and that has been my goal kind of for the last year, is I don't have to do everything all the time. Like, I'm balancing work, I'm balancing my biz, I have a relationship that I love and care about, I have friends, family, and that's a lot of what many of us are balancing with too. But the difference, not necessarily difference, but something that I've been trying to unlearn is like, if I'm not on top of it all the time, it doesn't mean I'm failing.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, as well as, that reminds me, a fear of failure, getting more comfortable with failing, was something that was one of the first things I really had to unlearn when I was younger, and going into my early 20s, because doing anything wrong, being a perfectionist, anything wrong is just,
Oh yeah,
the end of the world. Getting more comfortable with that was a huge part too.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those almost reformed perfectionists. Still working on it.
Recovering perfectionist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a thing, because I also feel like we're in an age where there's so many people who start out with all the resources, or maybe their parents were in a specific field, and they're young, and we see their success like immediately, and we discount privilege, we discount background, experience, and we chalk it up to, if they're that age and I'm that age, I should be doing the same thing they're doing at the same level. Yes. But it's not that way all the time,
Yeah, definitely. And that was something that I had to kind of learn, but also adjust to. And a lot of other people I know have had to adjust to, is like, your timeline's not the same as someone else's timeline, because exactly like you said, some people might have started there because they had the privilege to be able to start there, or maybe they just had an opportunity that, maybe it was sheer luck, like who knows, like something may have been in the right place at the right time, or maybe they did do all of this hard work and you're only seeing chapter 14 while you're on chapter 1. So and I think I just recently heard someone say this during a webinar that I was watching, but like, you can't compare your chapter 3 to someone's chapter 30. Like some people say, like that, everyone says, Beyonce has the same amount of hours in the day as you. Well, Beyonce's got a big team behind her. She's gotten a lot of time. She's put in the hard work. We're not in the same place as her. Like, love her, but like, but yeah, it's just, it's not fair to you to compare yourself to someone else's different point in their life.
Right. And we also, something that I'm also grasping with, I have been fairly recently, is like the idea of like people being neurologically different, like people having different just ways of thinking, ways of functioning in the world. And that also comes into play, and like trauma, like these things just like filter into your business, into how you network, and we have to account for all of that. It's like we're way too hard on ourselves to like for the sake of impressing other people,
Yeah, definitely. And that comes in, I guess, also to like the society's expectations of where we should be right now. But like you said, everyone's unique. It's like, you can't put a blanket statement on people in their 20s or anywhere in their life. Like, it's too much pressure.
And it also kind of reminds me of the like those lists that are published, like the 30 under 30, or things like that, where it's like, okay, so like, where did these people start, and also like, what is their background, like we need to so like beating yourself up for not being a 19-year-old Lin-Manuel Miranda, like it's okay.
Or like being a billionaire Kylie Jenner on the front,
right, like
youngest
it's really
one. It's like it's Kylie Jenner. I think she's
yeah. Yeah, that's so real. So you talked briefly about there having been a toxic work environment. And like to lead with this, I'll like jump in with just like my experience with that. But like for me, I feel like I didn't understand that it was a toxic environment until I left or until I was like ready to leave. So what would you recommend? Well, first of all, I guess, what are the signs of a toxic work environment, and how would you recommend that someone go about that once they recognize that that's what it is?
That's a very good question. I think a lot of it would depend on what type of toxic environment, like what they're actually experiencing. But in regards to what I was experiencing, I knew almost immediately, like the energy was just wrong there. Also, to give the story just really quick, it was an internship for an online fashion boutique, and I was doing their social media. I was on one of the social media interns, and the first day of my internship, there was a giant PR scandal because the CEO had fat shamed one of the employees at one of the stores in an email, and that person put the email online, and it went viral to the point of MTV and Refinery 29 and people posting it on their Snapchats, like the corporate Snapchat stories back when that was more popular.
Oh my word!
It was that. So I had to work under that CEO, and I had to deal with that for 3 months when I was very, very aware that she was so non-inclusive and so judgmental and so just in her own world that So it was I'd say that's a quite a little bit of a unique toxic environment, but in more of a general scale in regards to just recognizing that a big part would be recognizing just like the dynamics of the relationships you might have either with your peers or with your managers or something like that. Are they respectful of your time? Are you respectful of their time? Your boundaries? Are they asking too much of you? Do they allow you to have a life outside of work? Are they giving you enough credit for the hard work that you're doing? Are they just dismissing you all the time? Do you have opportunities to be able to speak your voice, or are you encouraged to stay quiet? Like just different things that if I feel like you would normally, but at some point you'll feel it in your gut. Your head might not recognize it right away, but depending on what you're going through, your energy is just going to be drained at the end of the day. Like, and it depends, like I said, it depends on what you're going through, because it could be a bunch of different situations, but I know it's not easy to say, just get another job. Like, so I guess the biggest thing, the first part, if it's a problem with a manager, like you have a specific manager who's not acknowledging your personal time or just, one of those things that I mentioned, if you feel comfortable, maybe you'll be able to talk to the manager. I know that's not always the case, but if there's a way that you can set boundaries and say, hey, this is what's happening, that might be an option. If not, maybe someone else is experiencing something similar as you. Maybe it's a bigger issue that throughout the company might be able to talk together with someone else in the company that might be able to help. But if not, like a big part is to at least take care of yourself throughout that process. So make sure that when you are at home, you're doing those things that fulfill you, that do bring back your energy, and whether it's meditation or anything in regards to self-care, to really acknowledge what's missing, but also something that you can help take care of yourself along that way. And make sure you're doing things that fulfill you outside of it, like whether it's hobbies or you're spending time with loved ones, or you have that, hopefully you have that support system to be able to help you through that. And as much as you can, I would encourage get a different job with going through that, if that's an option. But to be able to manage it through there, those are some of the things that I would recommend. I was lucky because I was an intern, so I knew there was an end date. So I kind of just pushed through it. I was kind of just there for the most part. I wasn't as fully engaged as I probably could have been, but I knew they didn't actually care about me very much, and I didn't get along with like anyone there. So I just kind of did my work and I went home, and I didn't put my own value into my job there, because like I didn't put my own identity in that job. That job wasn't a part of who I am. I was there just to get work done and then go home.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Cool.
So my other question is, what do you think is stopping young people particularly from starting their own businesses or from having their own creative pursuits, you know?
I mean, I guess the biggest thing that would come to mind is fear, because, or just the overwhelm of what you need to do to get it off the ground, a mix of both. Because I've definitely had quite a few friends that want to either start their own businesses or start a blog or start a vlog or anything like that, or do something creative. And some of the biggest things is like, will anyone care? Especially if you're like in life coaching or something, like that's such a term that people outside of the community would probably be like, life coaching. Okay, sure. Like who really, what do you do? But I mean, thankfully now a lot more people I think are starting to acknowledge that working from home isn't easy, and you're not just on a computer all the time doing nothing, especially because everyone's now for the most part being forced to work from home at some point throughout quarantine and whatnot. But yeah, I'd say fear, and not really, just fear of doing the right thing, like of not being able to do the right thing. Like, is this the right step I need to take in order to do this? Am I doing the right thing there? There's also the imposter syndrome that comes up. Am I qualified to teach what I want to teach? Who am I to say these kinds of things? Like, who am I to write this book? Like, anything like that can pop up. But yeah, I think, and then also I guess, I hate saying this, but coming up with excuses that kind of procrastinates it and pushes it longer. Oh, if I do this one thing, then I can do it. But then another thing comes up. I do this one thing and then I can go live with this business. So kind of like getting down to the core of what you actually need to do and then just going for it and pushing through it. Because it's never really as bad as what goes on in your head, in my opinion. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's what would be some of the more intimidating things about starting their own business and whatnot.
Yeah. I also want to speak to the whole misconceptions about the self-help industry and about, you know, the life coach arena. I do think that there's like a weird, I think stigma is a strong term, so I'm not gonna use that, but like,
right.
Yeah. So like, what do you think some of those are? Because I've seen, like, I saw a friend post something on Facebook where they were like, don't talk about how someone can manifest their future, et cetera, but also you don't talk about the dark times. You don't talk about, you know, the times that you're struggling. So like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting thing. I feel like part of it is in regards to just like the self-help world in general. I think a lot of it has to do with just misunderstanding what it is, because one of my boyfriend's friends, he does not believe in personal growth. He does not think people can change. Like, he's just very set in his ways. That's just who that type of person he is. He knows not to say his opinions about it in front of me because he likes me as a person. But he thinks, his view is that all of these coaches or whatever, anyone who's in the industry, is pretending to have it all together and pretending to have everything when they don't. And so they think that we have figured everything out and we can help fix you and we're going to make you pay us money to fix you, if that makes sense. And that's not what it is. It's really to just kind of help share the knowledge that we've learned either through our experiences or through our expertise, whether you have a career out of whatever you're doing, to be able to help someone with at least one thing, that one problem that you can relate to. And a lot of it is helping other people, just giving them the tools to be able to figure out how to navigate what they're dealing with on their own. It's being that support to be able to help them do that digging that they may not have realized they needed to do to help them kind of push forward. In regards to the manifesting part of it, I think there's a lot of things in that area that could be addressed.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Can I ask how your opinion on the manifesting?
Yeah, okay. Because I try to make a point on my platform, or rather, I've kind of turned a corner at this point
Mm.
in my creative journey where I really want to focus my platform on intersectional wellness and taking into account race, gender, ability, all of it. I want to just really focus on how we can be more of a community in terms of self-help, because I think that the self-help industry, I feel like a lot of times self-care industry is like, oh, like just like buy the soap, treat yourself, and
Yeah.
that's self-care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like there are people and there are businesses within the industry that are not that. And I think, I think that critique is warranted in that sense.
Yes.
You
And
know?
like, honestly, to be like completely honest, I wasn't as aware of just how, I guess you could say, ignorant a lot of the self-help industry can be about the reality of the different situations in life. That's, like you said, the intersectionality of the different circumstances and not being as inclusive in regards to where people might be coming from, and just saying, oh, just manifest it, it'll be fine. You're good, just think positive, it's fine. It's that toxic positivity that's, I think, I've been seeing a lot more lately, of like trying to call attention to it, of like, there is a lot that someone might be dealing with, and you can't discourage that. You can't say, oh, it's fine, just think positively, just visualize yourself doing better. No, there's some things that they might need to navigate through first.
It gets dicey too when we start talking about like who are the faces of the industry right now, or like who, is it a celebrity that's like, hey, like you can feel better about yourself if you do this and this and this, without taking into account all this other stuff? Like, is it, someone who is coming from a place of privilege?
And like you had said, actually, I meant to touch on that. People saying, oh, just buy this thing and you'll be okay. And I've always really tried to stress that self-care is not just bubble baths. And like, even sometimes it's not just meditation. It's literally, it depends on the person, and it depends on what fills the different areas of your well of self. Like, there's so many, it's so much more dynamic than that. And unfortunately, I think a lot of corporations are starting to capitalize on the term self-care and kind of misleading the actual reality of what that means, which is unfortunate, but that's corporations.
Yeah, corporations are going to corporate,
They will. They're going to do what they do. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm so glad you addressed that though. Because it also makes it feel more accessible. Like it feels like something that's real when it's coming from a place of honesty and being empathetic and being knowledgeable about different experiences,
Yeah. And I think over time, a lot of those people, where they're celebrities, I mean, celebrities are a little bit, they're already, it depends, I guess, on the celebrity. Yeah. But at least within the creative entrepreneur community, I think a lot of those people they've started to show their true colors lately. And I think hopefully that people start to, you can kind of just tell, there's kind of a gut feeling there. If it's kind of like if sales in general is coming from a genuine place, or if they're truly trying to just take your money, So I feel like after a while, hopefully we'll be able to kind of see through, I guess I could say, the BS again of if they're actually coming from a place of empathy, or if they're only just coming from their own narrative, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what are some things in your life that I guess shaped you up to this point?
Wow. I guess a big part is the story that I had said at the very beginning. If I guess the first step that I took towards doing something that wasn't what someone expected me was actually going to that community college that the career counselor woman was blatantly telling me I was going to hate. And I went to this leadership camp my senior year of high school called Camp Royal, and that was the first exposure I really had to personal development, and I didn't even know if it was that at the time. But it was a leadership camp, but it was all about like diving into who you are as a person, like the type of person you are, how you interact with other people, how you can help other people. Like we were all in groups, and we had to after the program try and make try and either do a volunteer activity or a fundraiser to help a nonprofit or a cause somewhere nearby. It was really trying to take what we've learned to help the community around us. But that was really where I started to break through I'm not going to say introversion because I'm still introverted, but like being just blatantly shy and timid and scared of being more myself in front of other people, just because of the small school bubble that I felt like I was in. And that's where I really noticed that we were kind of put in boxes there. And then deciding to actually move to Florida and work for Disney was a huge turning point for me. Because I had discovered like I actually started school going to psychology and then changed to marketing. And then I worked at Disney for a really long time. I met some really amazing people, and all those people that I met helped me shape who I am, honestly, because they've become such important people in my life, whether they're still in my life or they're not. And then that whole experience with me and that full-time job, not the one after the internship I told you about, that still wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't, I wouldn't necessarily call it a toxic atmosphere there. It just wasn't the right job for me. And I wasn't the right person for who I was working for, I feel. But going through that whole thing, don't mind my cat. he's swinging around. That whole job is really what I guess forced me to turn towards personal growth and go to therapy, and just that whole process. Like, I'm very thankful that I was able to go through that, because it just really is what projected me towards the life that I'm living right now. Because if I hadn't gone through that job, I wouldn't have explored freelancing. I wouldn't have quit and found the job that I currently have, which I really, really like. And it's with an amazing supportive environment with like management that actually cares about you and all of those types of things, which I didn't know existed. I didn't know was possible. And just to be able to go through all of those things that I went through to be able to create the business that I have right now, that in itself too is just a big part. And I have to give a huge thing to my parents for helping me like through all of that. They were there to be able to, and I feel very lucky to have had them through that tough experience that I had. And my dad was really the one that tried to point me towards personal growth more. He had always tried that growing up. But I just like, I was like, I don't want to listen. I'm a teenager. It's like, whatever. But then at that point he was like, okay, try thinking about this, like try changing your mindset in this way. And that was really kind of a stepping stone to dive into that type of stuff some more. So I guess those are some things that I say would shape me right now.
That's awesome. So can you talk more about working at Disney World? What was that like?
Okay, so it was different. Two different things, because I did what was called the Disney College Program in Florida. And then I moved back to California, transferred schools, and I worked part-time in Disneyland just as a part-time employee, cast member. So in Florida, it was this whole, like, they call it an internship, but really you're just going to work there either in the parks or in a hotel or something, like just in one of their entry-level roles for like 5 months or so. And you can take classes where you meet Disney executives, and not necessarily executives, but people within the industry that are in roles that you want to meet. So I was able to network with some people in marketing, whether it was special events or Disney Cruise Line or something like that. None of those things like followed through, because I learned I didn't want to work in a big corporate conglomerate like Disney. But it was still really cool to see how they worked and how different like departments did marketing, because it was so different. And then I lived with 5 other girls. One of them was my best friend. She came with me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then we just met. So it was really just such a great experience to be able to, I worked in foods in a hotel in the Polynesian resort down there. And it wasn't the most glamorous job, but that really was just, the whole experience as a whole was life-changing to me and to a lot of people there. There's just this energy doing the college program there, at least back in 2013, of just, you're all there to just be a part of working for Disney and being able to bring, I'm just going to bring the cheesiness of this here, to bring the magic to the families and the kids. And that was the first time I had really done that. And then so going to Disneyland, I was in attractions in California Adventure. So I worked at, I started at this little Monsters Inc. ride that's there. I don't know if have you been to Disney here?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So there's a small like dark ride, kind of like the Peter Pan rides or Alice in Wonderland rides about Monsters Inc. So that's where I started. And then I got cross-trained to Soarin' over California, which is now Soarin' around the world, helped launch that, helped test and adjust and launch that new ride. And then also Tower of Terror, which is now Guardians of the Galaxy. But I loved working in attractions, despite the crazy guests and there's any customer service is going to have those people. But I just have to say that the best part of working at Disney was the people that you meet when you're there, both the families and the kids, but also the people that you work with. And the people that you work with, I don't know what it is, but we're all very like-minded people, it seemed. And I just had, that was when I had like probably the most amount of friends that I have. But that's really where I met my, I guess you could say, family in Southern California, because I had just moved. And so we're all there all the time working together, going through the same things. And I mean, I could say a lot of things about working for Disney now also that aren't quite as glamorous as people may think, because it is still, things were changing structurally, it seemed, in how Disney was handling their cast members, and things happening right now I'm not happy with either. And then a lot of parts about the college program has some things too that weren't necessarily the greatest, but I personally had a good experience overall. But I left at the right time. Like, it was my time to do something else, because the way that we're moving up in Disney is a lot of who you know and who likes you and that kind of game. And I didn't want any part of it. So I was like, bye. But my experience there at the time was great. It's a great job, especially if you're in college, you need something part-time. And it's a unique job too, I'd say. It's not something that, it's not the same, because I worked at like Barnes & Noble or something. It was not like working at Barnes & Noble. It just has a different vibe to it there. But yeah, I mean, is there anything specific that you were curious about with that? Or I'm an open book.
I'm wondering, what were some skills that were transferable from that experience, or just what are some things either like with like interpersonally or that you discovered about yourself that you were able to apply?
Customer service skills and like problem solving skills when it comes to dealing with customer service, because I moved up to like a lead position. It was like a supervisor position on one of the rides, and we had to deal with the angry of the angry of
classic.
So being able to both help your cast members and not necessarily like understand where your cast members were in that position, recognizing if like how to handle the situation, how to either accommodate them or navigate them to the best way, or when it's time to get someone else, like, and to learn how to communicate with people from all over the world was a big part. Because of course we'd have people that came and didn't speak English or something like that. Or if someone just truly misunderstood something, and having to communicate more effectively that way. So just effective communication was huge. And that goes within a team too, because I was also a trainer. And that's actually really where I learned that I love to train and develop, because I also help train at my day job now too. And even though that's not like my main position, and I feel like that kind of transfers to even coaching and whatnot in my business. So helping them learn, even if it's just helping them with the attraction, helping them learn things, just learning how to communicate with someone that might have a different style of learning. Some people might see things differently. Some people might need to, it's cool with hearing it. Maybe they need to visually watch someone give an example. Like, there's so many different ways someone can learn. So being able to meet them in that way to help them learn effectively was a big part too.
I definitely feel like being able to train people, that's a skill in itself. Like,
and Disney does a lot of things well, but like training they have that down. Like, they're very good at that. Any other job that I've had, they kind of throw you in, but they really train you wherever you are, which I think,
that's so good.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for your book? because I really want to talk about your book now.
So,
Yeah.
I have to, it didn't come from me. I have to say that. It was the publisher from Adams Media, my publisher. One of their editors reached out to me.
Mm,
And it's interesting because this happened to my first book too, because I have a book about my experience working in the college program in Florida that was
mm-hmm.
based off of the blog I had before, and the same thing happened. Someone came. But I think that's just what they do. They approach bloggers or someone who's writing they feel like would be a good fit for an idea that they have. But the
Oh.
reason why I did it is because it aligned with things that I valued and the things that I enjoy teaching and the things that I really thought it would be a helpful book. So it's called I'm Awesome, Here's Why. And it's all about helping you develop self-confidence. As simple as it gets. It's over 100 prompts. It's like more of a journal, I guess you could say. It's more of a guided journal. And in the very beginning, it talks about the basics of self-confidence and like how you can grow through develop your self-confidence and the different aspects of self-confidence. And a big part of that was self-care. So talking about all the different ways to be able to creatively and I don't want to say realistically, but tangibly build your self-confidence, both in the journal and ways that you can take it out of the book and into your life, is what it's all about. And I just really aligned with it. And I felt like it was a great book and a great book idea. And I felt like it was the right fit.
Oh, awesome. So, like, did you have any experience prior with journalism or writing anything of that length? Or was this a real, like, brand spanking new avenue?
I had written the first book. I had written a book before, so
Mm-hmm.
that other book, it was a little bit different of a process, and it's a different format because the other one was more of like a memoir, I guess you could say, of a period of my life. But writing like journal prompts like that was definitely brand new, and having to think of over 100 of them was a definite challenge. I have always loved writing like my whole life, and I've like in middle school and like elementary school and everything like that, one of my favorite things to do was just like write stories, like the short story things that you would write for English was my favorite thing to do. And I actually almost wanted to like pursue creative writing more in regards to like that would be a minor in college or something like that, but ended up just mainly focusing on the major.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, writing's always been something, a big passion of mine that I've loved to do. So, but this, in regards to a journal aspect, that was definitely brand new for me.
So it's awesome that you were able to, again, like, surmount the imposter syndrome that you talked about. Because I also feel like the way that I view authors, or the way that I view people who have enough knowledge to write an entire book, I just feel like it's on a different pedestal, like it's on a different level. And so, did you have any of those preconceived notions about that? I mean, it is amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, but did you have anything in your head where it's like, oh, that's like something that a legit person does, like something like that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was writing the chapter, which is like I don't remember how long the chapter was. It was 3,000 to 5,000 words. Like that was really, but I had to remind myself, it's like, okay, this isn't that much different than my blog. Like you just have to kind of write it in a little bit of a different style, but just try and communicate in a similar way because you're just talking to another person. That's really how I tried to get over that. And then once I was starting to hit walls with like needing over 100 prompts, I was like, do I not know enough? Like, I don't know. Am I creative enough to continue doing this? Do I have to get it from other people? Like it was, and then they would come back and be like, oh, you should probably rewrite this. And the editing process is not my favorite. I have to say that because I'll write something like write a whole thing and then it will come back completely just different, or like be like, no, I think you should take an approach this way. Oh, I think you should rewrite X amount of prompts, or your intro should have a different, like, that is hard to kind of, I guess unhook from. Is like, it's not me, it's the writing. Like to be able to kind of just get through the process and understand they have the best interest in heart in regards to the audience and the approach and everything like that. So yeah, those are kind of the things that I navigated through that.
Well, I didn't even factor in the concept of somebody else looking at your work and being like, change this. Like, it's not just you, it's somebody else.
Yeah, and I didn't really have that in the first book. The guy kind of was just like, all right, cool. He just like fine-tuned some things.
Mm.
But this one was a bit like, because they had multiple editors like looking at it, and
Oh, wow.
because they would have like the main one and they would send it to a freelance editor, and then there was a illustrator that would also do things, and so we had to all coordinate together in a certain way to create it. And yeah, so that
Wow,
was
that's a
that.
long process. So how long did it take you in total to write the book? From like
It
consumption to film?
Yeah, it was, I guess, 5 to 6 months.
Mm.
And actually, I just recently wrote another one with the same publisher, and that one I actually had some imposter syndrome ways, even though I had written one before. Cool. So I wrote a new one actually recently, but it was self-care for teenagers, self-care and mindfulness for teenagers. So I had to think only for teenagers, which is a kind of a market I hadn't actually addressed as much. So that one was more, I was like, am I qualified to talk about some of this stuff? I was like, I was a teenager once. I think I understand. I feel really old saying that. But that one I only had 1 month to write it. They were on a very quick time period, so I had to just crunch through and just do it all and pause everything else besides my job and go for it. But because they wanted to have it published at the beginning of the year for the new year, new me kind of era, and I was like, okay, I get it. I was able to negotiate like an extra couple weeks, but I was just like, whew, all right, let's go. But yeah, that one was only 1 month, and the other one, I guess, like through, if you include the editing and stuff, is about 5 to 6, I would say. Wow. Yeah, this one's still under editing, so not quite done yet in regards to that, but we're almost there.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, what are some messages, if you could give like a sound bite from your book with our listeners here?
Building self-confidence doesn't have to be done overnight, and you don't have through the book, you don't have to do it all at once, and it's not going to happen right away. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take some practice, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can build it, and you don't have to go in a specific order, and you don't have to follow specific instructions, but it's your own personal journey, and you have to follow what works well, like what feels right for you. But over time, bit by bit, you'll notice a difference. That's what I would say.
Oh, that's so meaty.
Yeah, I could go into that more, but that's the soundbite there.
Gotcha. Thank you for the soundbite. So another question I have is, how has the whole COVID situation, BLM, or any of the social unrest that's occurring right now, how has that informed the way you go about your business at all, if at all? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, like we had said earlier, I honestly wasn't quite as aware of how, I guess you could say, whitewashed the self-development and creative entrepreneurship industry is. Like, and I definitely have learned to pay more attention to a lot of the things that we had talked about earlier, and the intersectionality of ways, and not to, and I already didn't enjoy, like, it was never my intention to like blanket statement, oh, just think positively, like all that kind of stuff. I've never wanted to do that, but to truly understand that people might be coming from different backgrounds and different experiences that I personally haven't gone through, of course, that I haven't gone through, and to understand that some teachings that are within the self-care community or the self-help community, or even just in the creative entrepreneurship community, might not be as inclusive and aware of how to really help a wider range of people than their own kind of narrow way that they've been doing it before, if that makes sense. I have personally been really trying to educate myself more, and when it comes to being more inclusive, and trying to learn what the Black Lives Matter movement and community is trying to tell us, not trying to tell us, is communicating, and trying to understand that a little bit better, really trying to, I I actually took my self-care, something that I personally have done tangibly within the business since then. I had an online course called a masterclass called Self-Care to Confidence. And now 100% of those proceeds are going to be donated to anyone who purchases it is donated to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition.
Oh, amazing.
Based out of Texas. Because that is just that nonprofit is incredible. They're really trying to take, it's owned by, managed by Black trans members as well. And they are making an effort to try and help the Black trans community either locally or I believe further than that. But they, like for COVID right now, they are providing COVID care packages to people who might not have a stable home and might not have access to healthcare, might not have access to safety to be able to stay away from the virus or protect themselves from it. So being able to help them that way, as well as provide other opportunities and options and resources for them to be able to, sometimes unfortunately just even being able to keep going. So
yeah,
anyone who purchases that masterclass, I don't take anything from it. It just goes straight to donate and to give back in that way. So
that's amazing.
Thanks. And yeah, that's one thing. Sorry, continue.
Oh, no, you're good. Would you mind if I linked that in the description?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
So look out for that in the description, folks.
And there's more information about the sales page is honestly mostly about the organization. And there's also a link directly to the organization on there. So if people want to learn more about the BATC, that's on
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Oh, awesome. So in these crazy kooky times, what are some things that you are doing to stay emotionally and mentally healthy? Things that might give listeners or watchers some tips or ideas,
Yeah. I'm personally making sure that I do make time to kind of rest in certain ways, because I've been very lucky to still have my job right now because we can all work virtually. And so I'm still working, and that part of my life hasn't really changed much except where I'm working. But I'm working from home now. So it's kind of harder to separate working from home from my home. And so being able to separate the end of the day with, okay, now it's me time, even though my desk is right there, my computer is right there, doing something to kind of make that transition. And some of that is usually it's working out to kind of take that transition. And it's like, okay, let's go do that. But I've been really trying to meditate some more, as well as to kind of, because at first everything was, when COVID first started, was very overwhelming because there was just so much happening and so much like going, like uncertainty, and it was all new. It's hard to say that that's not new now. It's weird to think about, but yeah, so trying to not force myself to expect myself to do everything all the time, which is something that I mentioned earlier, but really making sure I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling to make sure that I'm taking care of myself in regards to, like, even if it's just, if I feel like watching Top Model all day, I will watch Top Model all day. Yes. And that's okay, but also communicating with some people that a lot of my friends don't live near me. So communicating with them virtually hasn't changed too much, but like FaceTiming maybe a little bit more, or reaching out to people a little bit more, and that kind of thing. Just really making sure that you I'm connecting with those people, even if I'm not physically seeing them anymore, has been a big difference too.
Yeah, I was better at that earlier. But I feel like I've kind of gotten into the habit of like not being social.
Yeah, like I feel you on that one a little bit.
Yeah. Like I was talking to my friend who I work with, and she was talking about when she was at the supermarket, and she was talking to the cashier, and the cashier seemed like they like forgot how to human because we've all just been in our own four walls for so long.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I feel that.
But yeah, it's hard, but it's necessary sometimes,
Yeah.
So what, or rather, who inspires you? I know it's kind of a big question, but if you could think of a single person, you can think of more than one person, it's totally fine.
Let me think. I feel like there's someone so one person that I really love, and have loved since high school. I know she has been through a lot in the recent years, but I really love Demi Lovato.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the first person. I always loved, huge Jonas Brothers fan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then so Camp Rock I loved it
Yeah.
in high school. So watching that for the Jonas Brothers and discovering Demi Lovato, I was like, I love her. But then she was like the first like public figure to really talk about mental health.
Yeah.
And like, she was the first one to really talk about it. And it really helped me realize like, okay, this is normal, that kind of, she went through so many things that I could never understand, or I haven't gone through necessarily, but just the fact that she was open about it is huge. And right now, and she's gone through a lot. She unfortunately had her relapse and everything like that. But now, like today, she's using her platform to speak out about so many different things. And like today, I think today is her birthday actually. And she said, for my birthday, I want you to donate or to sign a petition for Breonna Taylor or something like that. But
wait, that's crazy because we're almost birthday twins. I'm almost birthday twins with Demi Lovato. I couldn't be happier. This is my birthday gift. I don't need anything else.
There you go. But yes, she's I think the first person that comes to mind for me in regards to someone who's been consistently an inspiration to me. So, because she still speaks out about all of those different things, and I admire her for being one of the, especially as a young age, but she was like a teenager when she first started talking about that, when adults wouldn't. So, especially under the pressure of being a Disney Channel star, like on top of all of that. So, yeah, that's who I would say.
Yes. We stand. We truly do. Demi, if you're listening, you're not. But if you're listening, we stand.
Love you.
So what is something that you're excited about in the future, whether with your business or just like with life?
Yeah. So with my business, I just really feel aligned with what I'm teaching now. Like throughout everything that's happened, it's just something feels right on what I am communicating with. And I feel like it's really, even though I'm currently making a new program specifically for people pleasing. And it's fun to put together, and it's coming along a lot easier than other things that I've put together in the past. And I've been able to talk to people one-on-one about what they're looking for or what they're struggling with or what would help them. And all the conversations are just flowing very well. And so it's just making me really excited for what's to come in that area of that, launching that, and just continuing to to be able to connect with different people in that way. And then in life, I guess I could say something that I wasn't able to do this year because of COVID, but something that I without a doubt want to do in the future is we were planning on traveling to Italy this year. So that is still going to be a goal after we're allowed to travel again, but that's something I'm excited for.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it was like 1 week before quarantine hit. We were about to buy the airplane tickets and we were like, let's wait a second. Like, we were just like, let's wait. And then they were like, oh no, Italy is being overrun by everything. I was like, let's hold off on this for a moment. Let's postpone.
One of the many dreams dissolved by COVID.
I know. One of many.
Yeah. So what do you hope for the future in terms of your platform or just like your personal self-development?
I would just my goal is to be able to grow this platform to the point where I can be doing, I've even had seen myself doing like speaking events someday, kind of a situation. And if you had asked me that not too long ago, I would have been like, right. Like public speaking, like I can communicate through you, I can communicate in video, like it's much more comfortable for me. But in this last year of my job, I've been doing a lot more like sales presentations and stuff like that, and actually talking to people. And even though it's technically qualified as sales, you're just communicating something to someone else, and learning that has kind of taken away being as much fear when it comes to public speaking. And so being able to do that, but about the topics but helping someone else in that way in regards to whatever I'm talking about at the time, it could change by then. Just being able to grow in that way, and as well as communicate with other creative entrepreneurs like yourself, like doing more podcast episodes, doing more interviews. I want to bring in, and of course, hopefully have you as a guest pretty soon. But to be able to just connect with more entrepreneurs and grow together, I just think it's such a fun, magical experience to do that, because the more it's that whole community over competition thing. You're helping each other so you can help more people. Like, we're all trying to build something great to be able to make a positive impact in the world around us, if we want to talk big picture on that way. So that's something that really, really hope for and I'm excited about in the future too.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so my final question is, and this is going to be really broad and kind of meta, I guess.
Okay.
But what do you hope for humanity?
Ooh. Oh, well, I just hope we can become more, I guess, empathetic right now in the future, just with, I hate saying everything happening, but with how we've grown to be a little bit more divisive and a lot more hate. And I really think a lot of that would get better if we just kind of took a step back and didn't make ourselves the center of the picture. There's more to us out there than just our own personal story. And granted, we matter and our own experiences matter, but if we just took a moment to hear and listen to other people and empathize what they're going through and try and hear, literally just try and hear someone else and their own experiences, I think it would just make such a huge difference than automatically assuming something or fighting back and biting back. Just to be able to care about other people some more on a very, very basic level. I really wish I wasn't saying that, but I'm seeing it too much to not, unfortunately. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You had so many good little nuggets.
Thanks.
So yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed listening. Can you tell everyone really quick where they can find you on social media, where they can find your book, all that stuff?
Yeah, so my book, I'm Awesome, Here's Why, is wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, like IndieBound, anything like that. And my Instagram is where I'm most active. It's Sara Katherine blog, and I'm sure you'll have the link to how to properly spell my name, but Sarah has no H, Katherine has a K, so I have to always say that. I also have my podcast, which is the Be Your Own Badass podcast, and that's on iTunes, Spotify, everything like that. And my website is sarakatherine.com. So
awesome.
That's where you can find me.
Well, thank you again so much, Sara Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, you have a good day, okay?
Thanks, you too.
I wish you the best. Bye. If you like this episode, hit that like button. If you like this channel and are liking what you're hearing, what you're seeing, please subscribe. Leave a comment if you want to, if you feel so led. I'm excited to keep talking about self-care and the intersectionality aspect of it, as I feel like it should be generally. Stay well, stay weird as heck, and have the confidence of a 95-year-old woman, why don't you? Bye! Mistakes have been made, regrets have been had.